Definitely. Thank you.
I don't normally read that piece of it. It just happened to be sitting on my table, and I glanced over and said, that doesn't make
That
sense.
doesn't make sense.
I'm glad I missed those.
No, they didn't have any switches.
You know, we had snow days last week, so we had to.
Thank you.
Probably is involved in this up to you. Which?
Oh, yeah. That was purposely given to you. But there were others. So that you can have a look. And it's so funny because it's like a They moved to Canada. They went there for college. Not that serious. For the what? Yeah, that's true.
Oh, that I cleaned and I didn't, I think you had one and I had one and I threw everything this way and then I threw everything that way.
Oh, all right, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Oh, well, the meeting will come to order. All right, we need roll call.
Ms. Howe?
Here.
Ms. Butler-Challenger here. Mr. Wisswasser?
Here.
Mr. Almarigi?
Oh,
You're right back. Mr. Benzie?
here, let's hear.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Here.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Here.
Mr. Almarigi?
All right, item 2 is our civil reflection, the legal pledge of allegiance. Okay, and then a moment of silence after that.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have approval of the agenda. Item 3, is there a second? Because I have a question. So
You want to change the agenda, now it's time to do it.
that's right.
We'll go ahead.
Oh, well, I need a second for the discussion.
No. We changed the agenda before we have to make a motion and second it.
It's a motion, but whatever works. So what I'm looking at, and I'm not going to change much, second question. It's on page 4, in that first paragraph. It said it was decided to review meeting attendance policy and bring it to the board meeting for discussion. I've never seen a policy, so.
Somebody suggested there was an attendance policy.
Okay. Anybody got any thoughts? I don't.
What was the question?
Well, the question is, it says we have, it's on page 4,
It's on the last,
and it's that second piece, which is the second paragraph. And it reads, it was decided to review the meeting attendance policy, bring it to a board meeting for discussion. I've never seen policy, so I don't know.
I haven't circulated it yet.
Oh,
I need to
okay.
have it on for the next. I referenced a policy that was created by former Supervisor Jack Phillips for the committees. I have not circulated that yet, and it will be circulated prior to it being on the agenda next time.
Okay, that was my, there. Okay, that answers that question, because when I read it, it was like, I've never seen a meeting attendance policy, so thank you for that explanation, that's appreciated. Nope, that's good, because there was another one that had to do with process, but that's,
Would you like any additions or changes to the?
well, the only thing that I'm looking at is we do a roll call
Yes.
for the ending, for adjourning. My request would be that we do an unanimous consent, because everybody agrees to go, so there shouldn't be, you don't need a roll call, as long as you're a unanimous consent.
My understanding is that you run this meeting and you can do that.
That's the way I would much rather prefer it that way. So any questions? Unanimous consent means everybody agrees. So everybody agrees that we're going to adjourn.
What if somebody don't agree?
Well, if somebody disagrees,
Yeah, we've had that before. Joe wanted to stay.
did Joe stay?
Yes, he did for a while.
Oh, okay.
So
So if you want a roll call, that's entirely up to you.
that's up to you. So
I would rather do a unanimous.
So when it comes time,
Yeah, okay.
do that, just call for that.
Okay, that's the only thing that other than that, is there agreement for the minutes?
So I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second it.
I thought we were on the agenda.
Agenda, yeah.
Well, that is the agenda.
The minutes are the agenda?
Well.
No, no.
Did I say minutes?
Yes.
I'm sorry, because
It's been a long week.
I know.
Monday's been a long week,
I apologize. I mean, the agenda as presented.
and I will still second it.
And I have a question with the agenda. That was my fault, I did the minutes. So it wasn't you, it was my brain that did it. I'd like to move under new business, where it says A, the expansion. I would like to move that to unfinished business, because it is unfinished business. We postponed it.
Which number are you on?
Okay, it would be the third page, where it says new business, item 14.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's appropriate.
Right, so I would like to amend my motions to accommodate our supervisor's request.
Okay, so 14BA is removed to,
14BA will be moved to E, 13.
okay, thank you.
13E?
Yes.
I will second that also.
Make sense? Okay.
My apologies.
Now you want to second that?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I seconded it again.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Delacqua, yes. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Bensy?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Fields West?
Yes.
Any disclosures of conflict of interest? Hearing none. We move to item 5, which is public statements, number 1.
My name is Dennis Lardy. I live on Coleman Road. I'm on the Senior Advisory Board, and I am here to address that issue that you just were talking about. When I first joined the board, we had 9 members, and at that time, we worked very efficiently because each of us had our specialty, and we could split up the jobs great. And you know, being older, we move a little slower, so I felt that we ran really efficiently with 9. One of an example I want to give is I was in charge of bath days, getting volunteers. It was very difficult to get. We needed like about 16 volunteers, and I had trouble getting volunteers for it. And when I couldn't get the volunteers for it, our board members stepped up and filled in the gaps that we needed. And with 9 people, that made it very easy, and it was a great help. And we need the diversity in the group of having 9 people that may have different talents from others. For example, when we did the Elvis thing, it was perfect because, for example, I knew how to do the business program, the business form for it, and someone else knew how to get the talent worked out, and everybody just worked in a different area, and it helped with having the 9 members. Also, we need, when we start working on our expansion plans, fundraisers, activities, our outreaches, the more members we have, that 9 members would help us, in my opinion, be able to reach some of those goals. And finally, I wanted to point out the fact that, to my knowledge, We were 9, and we were arbitrarily moved down to 7 by the previous supervisor, so in my opinion, I don't think that was voted on by the board or anything by trustees to take it down to 7, so technically, I feel that we still really should be 9.
Thank you, Mr. Lardy. Is there anybody else?
Dennis, that was great. He's such a good speaker. I'm here for 2 things. One, in your packet is the 2021 to 2023 Senior Services Strategic Plan, which I hope you all had a chance to read. And upon reading that, you will see that we have set ourselves a very ambitious agenda. As Dennis says, when the Senior Center is in full mode operation, we are quite busy reaching out to people, bringing new people in, providing activities and services and programs. And the more people we have to help us serve the Senior Center, the easier the burden is on all of us. Just to say that the Senior Center is robust right now. It's great, the meals are good, the team is fantastic. We probably have on the average 40 people in there to eat every day and 12 to 15 people that come in and pick up their lunches. So we are serving a really important need in the community. It's hard to believe, but I think if you look at the latest census numbers, close to 25% of the people who live in Bath Township are 55 or older. So we have a lot of outreach to do and a lot of additional work to do. So 9 members would really help us, and that would be great. If you have any questions about the Senior Services Strategic Plan, let us know. And we'd love to see you at lunch sometime. The food is really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Is there anyone else? Because I have one to read that I received from an email. I'll read the last paragraph to you first. It says, Marie, would you or another board member read this for me at the Board of Trustees meeting for tomorrow night? Meeting, she wrote it yesterday. I've not been feeling well and may be able to attend, but she says she would know. So she goes on to say, the Open Meetings Act was brought up at the last meeting to be discussed on 2/7/22. It was brought up regarding military members of committee and commissions. However, as highlighted in your packet, it also referenced the ability to not, and she put this in large print, not live stream or videotape for the public, meaning, I guess we can say no. That's what it basically says, or we can say yes. I would respectfully request that when considering this township meeting option under the Open Meeting Act, that you continue to live stream and post videos on your board meetings. If you were to discontinue this valued reference, it would, I believe, diminish your vow of transparency to the community that you serve. She goes on to say some other things. I'm not sure. They're not on the agenda. So should I just go ahead and finish reading it? That's okay.
Who is the letter from, please?
It's from Meg Ritchie.
Okay.
And it says,
Who's it from?
Meg Ritchie. Meg was the one that came in, that she's somewhat disabled. And
Yeah.
So she's saying, I'm not feeling too good, so. What she goes on to say is the American Rescue Plan review loss. Will you vote on that? Question mark. Also, would the beneficiary of the opiate crisis money, question mark, who is the beneficiary? Would the money return to, that's the question answered. Would the money return to where it was initially spent, question mark? Would it be the police department, question mark? Is Bath Township considering doing an emergency blood drive? That was another question. Pay for committee members. How do you know, this again is from Treasurer, how do you know about cutting checks for committee members? So anyway, that's the email that I received. What Meg Ritchie hasn't read, because at least I just got it February 4th, is that the governor has looked at the ADA, the American Disabilities Act, and she has said that obviously we need to provide two-way communication with people who are handicapped under the ADA. And the Attorney General says that in her opinion, it's necessary to effectively, if these two don't balance each other, and if the ADA actually overrules the OMA, the Open Meetings Act, so that's something I'll be sending to her, so that she's got, I don't know if she received that or not, I don't think so, I think that just came to us. So it does amend it to that point. So anyway, is there any other public comments? If none, we will go on to items, and I don't see anybody here from the county, state, federal, or other agencies. Okay, so then we will take 7, which is the consent agenda. What's your pleasure on the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Bensy?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Now. I think we already hashed this out. I'm ahead of the plan. We go to 8 item, which is approval of the minutes, which is what I initially put in. So that was my mistake. It was out of order. So are we still going to amend it to the consent? Or should we unanimous consent? We already found out that our meeting attendance policy will be distributed, so that's correct.
Did you move to have, yes, I will
Okay.
distribute it, but did we have action in the last meeting to have unanimous consent?
No, that's what I'm asking.
But if it didn't happen, why would you put it in the minutes from the last meeting?
No, I'm just saying that was a question that I was having
Oh,
about unanimous.
Okay, sorry,
consent.
my apologies.
Yes. No, I'm
I
not.
thought you were asking to add it.
No,
Okay,
that's why I said that was an issue
okay.
that I was bringing up. So that was my only question.
So do you want to change it from like this forward? Is that what you want to
Yeah,
do?
from this meeting forward, that's good.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular board of Trustee meeting minutes of January 18th with amendments.
Second.
What are the amendments?
On the last page, she wants to change it from motion carried.
And what do you use a unanimous
Consent.
consent as opposed to taking?
Roll call.
But what does that have to do with the minutes?
No, it doesn't.
So what are the adjustments to the minutes is what I'm asking.
Oh, you only had questions. There wasn't any adjustment because Karen had answered it and said that she was going to submit. I was asking the question because I've never seen the meeting attendance policy.
Okay, I'll change that.
Okay.
I approve the minutes of the regular Board of Trustee meeting of January 18th, 2022.
Or,
Is that Joe or
Yes.
Jason? Okay,
Yes,
Jason. Okay. Ms. Howe?
Yes,
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Bensy?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
yes.
Mr. Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes.
sorry about that.
That's
Everybody
okay.
all confused. All right, item 9 is the approval of the vouchers for 2021.
Move approval of the vouchers presented for 2021.
Second.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Bensy?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger? Yes. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Yellowish clear also, okay?
Okay, so we need a motion to approve the vouchers for 2022.
Yes, I have-
Did them both?
Yeah, your motion was for both,
Oh,
wasn't it?
No,
Just one.
2021. Now we need an approval for 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers for 2022.
Support.
Mr. Bensy?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
So we are on to item 10, which is the Treasury Report.
Yes, ma'am. We're in the final month of our tax collection here. This last week, we had a significant amount of people that was absent from the township all here. We had some people on vacation, we had people out with COVID, basically myself and one of our employees from the administrative services helped us, Mrs. Evans, Sam. Did a good job up there. We was able to contain and keep the right internal controls, and everything ran perfectly smooth. We had a pretty good collection last week. The other things, I didn't get a chance last week because I wore a lot of hats. I didn't get a chance to take and do much of anything for a treasury report, and we're still mopping up today from last week. But I will just tell the board that on February the 28th, Maynard and Costerison will be in the office here to start the financial statements. They'll be here on March 1st through the 4th as well. These are the notes and the documents that get put together during that week that they could make up the financial statements, which get handed off to the auditor. We also have been working this last week. We found some time, Karen and I did, to meet with Aaron Stevens from Maynard and Costerison. We went over a few things that we have in the way of internal controls that we've been working on throughout the year. I felt that it was necessary that we needed to meet with him before we had the auditors in here to make sure this stuff is all. So they see this in place and changes what we've made, because we've had a significant amount of change here in the township hall in the office park here in the last year with people with new jobs and new things. And there's little things I picked up along the way. I've tried to figure out what's not getting done, and we're fixing that. We're working on that. April 4th through the 6th will be when the auditors from Kalamazoo will be here, and that'll be the actual audit. We don't foresee anything big happening there. We got a few things that's going to come to you here in this next board meeting this month yet. It's got to be done before we close the year out. We have talked about this on this last week with Aaron Stevens. We have the DDA funds, which we're going to close our account with LCC. I've asked for Karen, the mathematical part of it is all done. Aaron Stevens is actually, I wanted a third-party person doing that other than myself, so he penciled that out. We have the numbers, but I asked Karen, going back to the conversation we had earlier in the year, and Ryan, you mentioned the fact that if we're going to go back to LCC, we're going to see if they'll donate that money towards Bath Township, their share of it, for students to get loans or get scholarships. And I'm hoping that you and her can put together some kind of draft of letter when I can hand that over to the LCC people.
I think that was Jason.
Requesting that. I thought it was you.
I was the one who said that's not going to work, but we should still try.
You'd be phenomenal at it.
I think it's a good effort. I think we should try.
I'm happy that.
I think Karen's going to write it. I think that anybody on the board here that wants to be involved in it should be involved in it. If we can keep that money in the community from the way of for students for LCC to utilize, and I think it's a great idea. You never know, they may come back with something or they may not. You don't. I do remember you saying you didn't think it was going to work, but I do think that I thought it was you that said that. I apologize, Jason. I didn't realize it was you. So that is that one thing we did. We also had some other things that we worked out in the way of taxes and things in the last week here that we needed to get done in the PPT tax, which is your personal property tax reimbursement that took the place of personal property tax when they did away with a lot of the personal property taxes, the distribution years ago. The state has a fund for that. We have that cleaned up and that's ready to go. In fact, I sent the check to the draft to the clerk's department to cut the check. Incidentally, that is who cuts checks in the township here. The accounts payable go through the clerk's department. They can verify that. Earlier tonight, you mentioned that the treasurer does that. The treasurer doesn't do that. The treasurer actually prints the check off and writes the check and signs it, but they actually goes through the clerk's department. Accounts payable does. And there's other things that we're working on just to finish up the year for 12/31 here, but things are moving right along and they're going, and it's gonna be here before you know it here. April 1st is gonna be here, and warm weather will be here, and the others will be done. I'll be happy. That's my treasurer's report. Yes.
Of course. My question has to do with, when you were reviewing, and Karen was with you, as obviously representing staff and et cetera, you were reviewing the procedures that are done or the policies that need to be.
We have internal controls and policies that was
Okay.
in place. It's quite old. It was done, I believe, Brian, you was on the board the last time. It was done in 2012, 2013, somewhere in there. And we need to take and update them and look at them from time to time and make sure that we're still following them. When you change people and you have different people doing different jobs out front, that's where the ball gets dropped, and that's where things happen. Things that don't get signed correctly, or things that don't get approved the way they should be, approval process or whatnot, and that's kind of what my job is. That's what a treasurer's job is to kind of look around and be the bad guy and call foul every time you see something that's not right.
Well, you did that very nicely in March. That's my question.
That's what you do, and we're working on that, and that protects us, is what that does.
Yes.
That's how we have audits that are better audits, because it protects the township. And then you say, well, what difference does it make? It makes a big difference, because when you go to bond for money, you go to get something, it's like your credit report, and whether or not you got a good credit report or not, whether or not you're gonna get kind of rates you're gonna get for bonding for money, and other things that come down the pike as well. But yes, we are working with that. He is the same guy that wrote the last one, so it was easy to do, because he was able to, we had his copy, and we was able to go through it, but we was able to add to it where we needed to. And every year, even with the state of Michigan, every year things change. There's certain things, policies and procedures that may change. And with all this new money that we have, and all these new things we seem to be coming up, I noticed that lady's email, she had lots of ideas there.
Yep.
There's lots of rules that go with that stuff. And he's a good source for that, because he's right there in the mix on that. He sits on several committees with the Department of Treasury, and because they reach out to auditors and accountants and people, and they have people sitting on them committees to be able to come up with some of these ideas.
All right, so can you tell me then, as you've reviewed this, is there going to be a change when it comes to the procedure of information? Because I knew nothing about not going into the safe. I was shown by Kathy.
That's
That's
more or less a township's,
Okay.
that's our department, that's our township, we set them parameters.
Okay.
They don't, they'll make recommendations, the same as what the auditors will, of who is allowed to be in the safe, who's not allowed to be in the safe, who has access, who has the combination to the safe, who doesn't. When you talk about the safe, you're not talking about the same thing. We talked about the vault. The vault actually houses the safe, and that's where the issue is.
So the
If you go
vault,
in the vault, if you got a key to the vault, then you should be in there. Basically, if you don't have a key to the vault, then you have no access to it.
I know, I found that out from your discussion in March, which was very nice. So I guess if there's going to be any input at all, that those kinds of things be brought up at the time that one is here.
There's things that could be taken.
Because I'm sure there are things I'm doing that I'm not supposed to.
And you could have treasurer policies. Some townships, some municipalities have that. I don't have any currently.
I'm not talking treasury.
Other than what they are. Well, that's part of it.
Well, sure, it's part of it, but what I'm talking about is when I went into the vault, not the safe, the vault, I was informed that I wasn't supposed to be there.
You can be there.
Without
You have to
someone
have somebody in there with you that is
Exactly.
authorized to be in there.
I didn't know that. That wasn't something, Kathy was the one who showed me how to do the research. So my question for you is, and you've answered it, you said that's a township policy.
Yep.
Procedure. That's not what you're talking.
Former Superintendent Dan Letitia is the one who came up with that.
Well, I don't care who came up.
And it deals with whether or not, who had access to it.
Okay. I just wasn't informed.
And here's the deal, if everybody has access to it, and there's an embezzlement, and there's money, I don't care if the investment happens at the counter, or if it happens at a desk, or it happens at the bank, or it happens in that vault.
I get that.
You're not protected, and that's why that rule was put in place.
But I didn't know, yes, you did, loud and clear, but I didn't know at that time. Now, I came in the middle of November, and in March is when that took place. So my question is for you, when you're reviewing these procedures that you're doing, then it would be nice if somebody was given those procedures. Go ahead.
Well, you've only been here since November.
That's
If
correct.
you remember right, you were still pretty busy trying to figure out where you were.
I would have loved to have the procedures to know what I should or shouldn't do, but go ahead.
It sounds to me that perhaps one of the things that we should think about and work on over the next 3 years is an onboarding policy for new board members and officers.
Yes, exactly.
So that seems completely reasonable, and if that's even as little as aggregating what the various written policies are, I know I would find that also helpful. I just know what I can and cannot do or what the expectations are.
That's, okay. Nope, that was my question. So if you finished the treasurer report, you still have
Do you have any more questions?
Nope, that was it.
Okay, I guess we're done.
Okay. We're going to go to item 11, no committee appointments at this time. Item 12, we're going to have reports. I see one back there. Safe routes to school, Chris. You're on.
All right. Thank you for having me. Appreciate giving me the time to come and talk about this. So, the Safe Routes to School Committee, we meet on a weekly basis at this point, every Monday night, and we just kind of go over all the things that we've done, all the things we still need to do. Tonight, what we discussed was we're currently adding all the descriptions, what we need to put in for the grants, all the wording we need for specific areas. Our subcommittee for the non-infrastructure programming, they meet separately on a couple different occasions. The committee members are Christy Reynolds, who's here, for the non-infrastructure part of it. Christy Reynolds, Chris Hamilton, Paul Hartzig, and who am I forgetting? Dan Vlasic. A couple things that they have, the non-infrastructure part of it, it's basically get $20,000 for the grant. And so the non-infrastructure part is coming up ways to engage the community, get them to understand the importance of having these and how to, not necessarily just how to use them, but that they're there and that they're accessible. And that's really one of the biggest parts is making people know that they are accessible. So within that $20,000, we have to come up with a plan. After we submit the plan and go through the process, we do a survey to make sure everything's right in line. So a couple things that we've determined is we have to have at least 1 to 2 coordinators that come up with all the ideas, that project coordinators that come up with the things that we do as far as non-infrastructure programming. There'll be a part-time person, and things that they're going to do is things that they've come up with so far is it's called a walking bus. So in areas where, like subdivisions, we'll say Hunter's Crossing, for instance, all the children from there could take these new sidewalks to a specific area, meet there, and then all walk to school. So that's one of the things that they've come up with, which I thought was really great. And even subdivisions on the other side, I can't think of the name of it, but over there by the library, they would meet at the library and walk over as a walking bus over to the schools. Another thing that they encourage through the non-infrastructure program are prizes. So to get people to walk to school, they give them prizes when they get there. Say, hey, good job for walking, riding your bike, whatever. Also, we've identified a need for training of crossing guards, teachers, how to properly direct kids across the road, making sure we have proper signage, proper equipment to make sure that we're doing everything right and we're following all the rules. Next, social media. Christine McAllister has been in charge of all that. She puts it out weekly, whatever it needs to be, and through the stuff that I've seen and what she's collected for us, I'd call it a solid 95 to 98% positive feedback just for having newer sidewalks available. We're trying to narrow this down a little bit to just tell people that we have very specific areas that we're looking at, not just in the township, but very specific areas. Those areas I'll go and tell you about here. 3 high priority areas that we see that need to be done. First and foremost on Slate Road, Hunter's Crossing, Harvest Lane to Main Street. We've really fought for that specific area, and it's really come up with some pretty big challenges. The grant specifically says you have to have 2 sidewalks, or 2 5-foot sidewalks on either side of the road, or 1 10-foot path on one side. We really don't like the 10-foot path. I think if I had a 10-foot path going through my front yard, I'd be pretty annoyed by that, and I definitely would not support that. So we've really pushed the 5-foot sidewalk, and when it gets down to it, I think people are going to like that as well. Anyhow, the 2 5-foot sidewalks on either side, that poses a bit of a problem too. That's our biggest money that we have to come up with, or part of the grant. So from Harvest Lane just to Main Street is $350,000. And within that, we have to deal with a couple different things. There's a marsh, swamp, whatever you want to call it, that poses really the biggest problem. So Mark Trotter from the Clinton County Road Commission has really worked with us to make sure we understand that if we do that, we have to do certain things. One of which recently came up, and that price includes this change that we had talked about, is we have to put culverts underneath the roadway there to really effectively make those sidewalks last and make sure water's not piling up over the road like we've seen in the past. So what that would include, the $25,000 to do that, you basically have to tear out the road, put the culverts in, re-drain, do all the whatever it is you have to do. And then you would build up and put your sidewalks on either side of the road. So that's the first highest priority for us. Next would be the Walnut Street from High Street to Webster Road. So that one comes in at a cost of $121,157. So that will have 2 5-foot sidewalks, one on either side of the road. What that includes is at the corners of High Street and Cherry Street, you're going to have crosswalks on every I don't know what you want to call it, every intersection there, every roadway. So there'll be 4 crosswalks there. There'll be non-flashing signage to show that this is a pedestrian crosswalk. And then it would go down to Webster Road, and there it will cross over from the north side of Walnut to the south side, which is where it adjoins to the park. It'll go, and there will be a crosswalk that goes over to the playground area of the middle school, basically putting it in the middle of the playground there, that big sidewalk between the middle school and elementary school driveway. And lastly is James Cousin Memorial Park intersection there, or sidewalk through there. That's taken a lot of work as well with all the groups that are part of that, such as the Museum Committee, the Lions Club, who may have a stake in that a little bit, and then also the Methodist Church. It goes right along the Methodist Church property line. That one specifically comes in at about $50,723. So what we get with that is a crosswalk from Main Street, because there's 2 sidewalks on there. Crosswalk goes across Main Street. It'll connect and go all the way across along the property line of the Methodist Church and the park. It'll go up to the next crosswalk. It should be, we think it's going to be a pretty straight line, so it should line up right with the crosswalk for going into the elementary school. So that's our whole goal, is to get that straight across there. A couple things that we had to contend with. There are possibly some bushes and some planters that are there, so we got a hold of the Lions Club. We got permission from them. They couldn't really narrow down if the bushes there, the planter was there, so we got with both the church and them. They don't really, neither one of them have any real vested interest in it, so we figured out a way to make sure that we take care of those shrubs that are there, as well as the planter box in an appropriate manner. So the grand total for those three items that we find the highest priority is $521,000, $157. The difference in that, and with the grant, we get up to $440,000. So our difference there is $81,157. Within that, there's a chance that, as long as what's reasonable, what we want done is reasonable and justified through the grant program, there's a possibility of going up just a little bit. They might be able to authorize just a touch more money, but that's still $81,000 is a big number. So another thing that we're doing is we're working on grants to make sure that this is payable, that is something that we can afford to do, that it's not solely on the township to pay for. One of the ideas that we came up with came from Mark Trotter. It's called it's a community engagement grant. I thought I put it on here, but I didn't. So basically, it's a matching grant through this company that you come up with $40,000, they match it at another, say, $40,000 or something like that. So there's stuff like that. There's also federal grants, other federal grants that are out there that can also help pay for this. But we, team members of the committee, are actively searching for grants to help pay for this. And then we recently were notified about another mini grant that is going to help with non-infrastructure type things. So it could potentially knock that number up to about $30,000. So that'll just help us pay for additional either signage or materials or training or whatever it is we think that we need to educate people on safely walking to school, crossing guards, training. And that's really something that we've really come to learn, is that there's just a ton of training that people need to do. So that's about all I had. Anyone have any questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, what about your snow plowing in the wintertime? We accepted a sidewalk down here on M78. It never gets plowed, except for what Myers does. And the intersection is not taken care of. And I just want to make sure that you got some spots out there that are in long stretches without houses.
Okay, so the way that works is it's up to the property owner if it's a 5-foot sidewalk. From what I've learned, it's up to the property owner with a 5-foot sidewalk to make sure that they clear it. If I'm assuming that if there's not a clear, distinct property owner, it would be up to the township to take care of that. Now, 10-foot sidewalks, we've discussed this at length too, and it's really coming from the road commission that generally the township will cover 10-foot sidewalks. But I spoke with Karen several times about this, and they're going to update and review the sidewalk clearing policy. And that brings up another issue, is it's not just clearing the snow from these things, it's keeping bushes and branches and debris and cars away from these new sidewalks and all this work that we put into it. So that's part of the policy change that I guess that either she's going to have to deal with or you guys are going to have to talk about to revamp and figure out how we're going to properly make sure that these are taken care of.
Can I just add to that? So the M78, that is the township's responsibility for clearing. That was made clear by both MDOT.
What was?
The M78 sidewalk,
Yeah.
that new J turn.
Yeah.
So that is the township's responsibility to clear. Because that came up before the planning commission when that was being proposed. So I mean, that's a solvable issue. The Cousins Park would be township responsibility per current payments of.
So can I ask for the township to come over and clear that sidewalk?
The one on M78?
Yeah.
I wasn't aware that that was our responsibility. but
I wasn't either until
we
you
can-
just told me
we
you
can
did.
take
That was,
certainly-
it was discussed in the planning commission. Obviously, communication didn't.
Yeah, so we'll talk with DPW and have that begin.
Okay.
I'll add to that. And we were told to stay right out of that J-turn. That's MDOT's domain.
Yeah, that's what they were told us. That's what MDOT said.
Yeah, that's MDOT's domain. And we're not to put a guy out there with a shovel cleaning that crosswalk in the J-turn.
Okay, so I'm getting opposite messages, so we'll have to
I
have
think
another.
there was a planning commission conversation on it.
Whether it's reaching out to MDOT or somebody, we'll need to figure that out, so.
Yes, ma'am.
2 questions for you.
Yeah.
Make sure I'm understanding, when you're talking about the crosswalk, when you say it's north, does that mean the crosswalk is actually east and west, is that, or
On which road?
on Webster, when you were talking about next to the school? It's just my trying to figure out what your
The crosswalk.
that are going from the schools to, yeah, so you do the same thing I do, I'm looking up and going, okay.
Are you talking on Walnut Street, the Walnut Street one? Oh, here we go, perfect.
Oh, good.
All right, so these are, we had this for our last outing, so we have all sorts of pictures, so.
Yep.
All right, which particular one are you talking about here?
But I had the question was, where the school's at?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
School is right here, this is the church,
And
this
so
is the
we're-
crossing
So
for,
the crosswalks could go east and west, not north and south, right? Because I kept thinking when you were talking, you were north. Because these are east and west, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure I was in the right,
yeah.
because they don't go north, they'll go east and west to cross.
I think what you're talking about is when I described the area of Walnut Road. So it's an angled road, so
Okay.
it's more northeast, southwest. It's easier to say north and west. So there's gonna be sidewalks on either side of Walnut. I said north and south side of it, just simple.
Okay.
And then there'll be
Yeah. Not
crosswalks
so
here.
simple.
There'll be crosswalks on any of the, on the 4 corners here, one on each roadway, however you wanna say that. Then on
Because that
the,
is odd, that's an odd way.
and then there'll also be a second set of stop signs put here to make it a 4-way stop.
Correct.
And then here on Walnut, when it adjoins with Webster
Webster.
Road, it's gonna cross from north to south, so it's gonna be right here.
What's
And
going to
then
cross from north and south?
another crosswalk,
Okay,
and then it's gonna go across Webster Road, east to west. And then it's gonna go to the sidewalk here, and then go to the schools.
okay. Yeah, the north part is what threw me off. Second question.
Sure.
That when you do, and it kind of dovetails with what Trustee Rosecrans was talking about, as to responsibility, and maybe that can be answered as to whether or not that would be an increase in their property tax because of improvement.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, that's,
What I do know is the plans that we have chosen are really the minimal that we were willing to accept. I mean, it goes over, but the whole point of this committee, the whole point of this grant is to connect our areas together. And as our committee, we thought the most important area was Hunter's Crossing because there's so many families in there and there's just absolutely nothing there. Now, if you go to the other subdivisions that are down the road, they're not great sidewalks, but there's some sort of infrastructure there. So we chose to take it as far as we could within the parameters. The parameters are up to about 1.5 miles is as far as they like to go. And that was really stretching our area of what we wanted from the schools. So everything is from the schools and out.
Can I just add to that? So this was a democratically voted decision by the committee that was informed based on recommendations by MSU's technical support team.
sure.
The other thing about this project is that In the 2018 non-motorized plan, it was raised that this was an issue that we had disconnected sidewalk systems. So this project is fixing that issue. That issue has been previously identified in prior comprehensive plans. And so we're accomplishing some significant gains here. I mentioned previously, we're going to create safe walking pathways for 66 current K through 8th grade kids. And that's going to affect over 84 households in the Hunters Cross and Fawn Valley area. So, I mean, there may be some, for those property owners who are affected, they may be somewhat disgruntled, but we honestly have only heard, I think, one complaint.
It was from a person who, it started by a person who didn't even live in the affected area at all, and then, people jump in and.
Oh, no, I'm with you.
Yeah. As far as property values, I have no idea, but I think the key to this is getting people, getting the connectivity, but I know saying that you're not going to have to pay a dime for this other than shovel snow a couple times a year on it. I think that's really the selling point is you don't have to pay for this. And right now, everybody's struggling for money, so I think that's super important.
Nope, greatly appreciated. Any other questions? Doesn't seem to be, it seems like you answered them all.
Okay, good. Thank you for your time.
Chris, just we make remind folks about this Thursday.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. So this Thursday is our final forum. It's held at the library this Thursday from 3 to 6 p.m. This one's going to be a good one, really, because we're going to have the MSU team there. They're going to go over their final recommendations of drawings and what they recommend for the what we've come up with. So that's going to be good. That's going to be probably somewhere between 4:30 and 5:30. So if members of the community can be there, especially our board members, 3 to 6 at the library. Anyone who can attend. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the reminder. That was all right, we're going to go to 12B as in boy, Broadband Task Force.
Yes.
Trustee Almarigi.
Thank you.
There you go.
So the Broadband Task Force has been fairly quiet, but work has been ongoing, primarily through the efforts of Taylor and our planner, Miles. They've been working with our survey contractor to finalize the processes for the surveys. In the next, few weeks, I think, do we have a specific date that's been identified for the distribution?
I actually just got approved today, later this afternoon, so I will be sending that to the printer to get a timeline from them tomorrow, so I'll have a better idea of that.
So likely in the next few weeks, we're going to send out postcards to every household in the township to complete a survey. We also have a business survey. Those surveys gather information about people's experiences with broadband, the high-speed internet in their home or in their business, ways that it has supported them, and ways that perhaps slowed internet connections or lack of connectivity or unreliable access have affected them in the negative. So we're going to gather some really good information that is going to allow us to be informed for when grant opportunities and funding opportunities come around. What does that mean? That means we can be very targeted where we build our infrastructure, so that we're not building infrastructure where it may not be needed. Looking at different solutions given different geographies. So there may be areas where we may want to do high-speed fiber lines, and areas where the population is so sparse where perhaps we do LTE, cellular tower-based internet. Stellar Internet Richard Lang, who's the owner of Sidewalk Internet, which is formerly known as SpartanNet, has been working with Victor Township on similar work, and he is aggressively seeking partnership with us. And so we've been holding him at a pause while we gather our data so that we can make informed decisions along those lines. So we're excited. We're going to pull the committee back together to just find out where we are. There will be additional recommendations that will be informed by the data that we get from the surveys. Any questions? Yes?
I recently took that Clinton County survey. It was not very nice.
So
The guy was very professional, but that was a lot of data mining that was being asked. Is that what we're going, I hope we're not going to do that now, maybe Taylor.
So let me talk about that, because I did see your Facebook post. So when you gather information from people about their experiences,
I get that.
there's
Yes.
always this balance of, do we want to ask about their personal background? Do we want to ask about their race or their gender or how much they make? And we're not particularly interested in knowing any particular person's income or background. What we're trying to do is to make sure that there aren't inequalities in the delivery of broadband. We want to make sure that there aren't segments of our community that are not that are disproportionately not receiving service or receiving slower service or are paying more than what you expect. The reason why we collect that is because this is what the federal government would want to see when we
Yes,
apply
they do.
for grants. And there may be opportunities where we can get specific funds tied to addressing those discrepancies in delivery of service. And so we don't know what the situation is, and out of an abundance of caution, we ask those, and we're clear, we ask those questions at the end of the survey, and anybody can not answer those questions, and we're clear about that if they want to protect that privacy. You know, we are not going to be asking about people's names, and we will ask for street address, but the survey contractor is not going to provide that back to us. What we'll do is we're going to calculate averages, and so the average in Lake Hawk Ridge, the average out in the boonies where I live on Clyce Road, the average for Mead Creek. Those are the types of ways that we're going to look at that data. Does that address?
Oh, that answers, I've heard that before. No, I did. No, I have always been. That's always something for me that's always been an issue, because it is data mining. No one needs to know how much your income is. You really don't know. You really don't need to know whether you're a poor section or rich section. You really don't. All you need to know is, do you have it? Do you want it? This is what, whatever the cost that you're going to have. So, and I've done those
If we
before.
asked about age, I think that would be important to know if, maybe the elder members of our community may not be receiving services that they need.
It doesn't have anything to do with it. All they'd say is, no, I'm not getting service, or I don't have it. It doesn't have anything to do. Whether I'm a male or female, didn't have anything to do with it. There was a lot of data mining that was going on with the county, and I was hoping that the township survey would be, limit themselves a little bit.
So, I
I
professionally
understand.
and appreciate the feedback.
No, I understand
disagree
why.
on the
I've
importance
done
of
this.
understanding
Yeah.
differences. But what I'll say is, the county underfunded their survey. Many of us
Okay.
on the board
Yeah.
were called. I think that may have been intentional, but in my opinion, what I heard was callers who were unprepared to deliver the survey and to answer basic questions.
Well, he was very good.
So, at least the person who called me. But that's neither here nor there. The county has done their survey.
Yes, they have,
It's a
and that's why I
small
was
sample
asking.
of that, and we're going to have a much larger, more representative sample of our community.
So in your survey, which I did with their survey, because I've done those surveys before, is I wouldn't answer. I said,
And that's fine.
And that's fine, and I understand that. But that's where I stand on it, and that was, I was disappointed, frankly. that some of the questions, so I was hoping that ours would be, from my standpoint, a little more mature than to have to go out and check with the community. Yes,
I think I would disagree. I think
sure.
that,
well, I do.
I think that when Jason and I went and met with Paul Hartzig, and I hope I don't have this number incorrect, but when they were looking at online learning, they went into approximately 25 homes of people that did not have or could not afford internet and installed devices, so those children had an equal opportunity to join online learning. Otherwise, those children wouldn't have been able to participate in schooling with their peers. So I would disagree that I think those things are critical. There's 25 children that wouldn't have had the same fair shake as other people that have internet.
The superintendent of the schools, that would be neglect if he didn't do that. I'm not sure that has anything to do with the survey. That would be my only. So it's not against or for anything. I'm just telling you that I have a serious concern with the data mining, and I'm hoping that ours doesn't do that.
So we
So, or at
will
least
have
to a
those
degree.
questions, and those questions were highly recommended by Public Policy Associates, who does this work nationally. I appreciate your comments, and I'll be brief. I appreciate your comments because we all value our privacy, and we don't want the information that we freely give to an effort like this to be misused and used against us. And so we as a board, we as a township do have an obligation to use that data effectively and to not abuse it. And so, and you will have a voice in that regard. And so, again, we're clear in the survey that, and we can be more clear on social media, that anyone who's not comfortable answering personal questions can skip those questions if they feel.
Absolutely, and you're right to do that as an individual.
So thank you for your comments.
No, that's not a big deal. All right.
Can I
Oh, I'm
comment?
sorry, I didn't see you.
Jason, you're spot on with this. Anytime you are competing with federal funds, grant monies, financing for federal funds or grant monies or anything, whether we're bonding for utilities, whether it's sewer, whether it's water, we recently looked at roads. All that is no different from what this program is, and it's huge because it is federal money right now that they're looking at. And that's what they do, is a financial report card on your community as to what your community can do and what it can't do, whether it can afford to sustain this, or whether it's a utility, whether it's a road, whether it's a broadband wire, whatever it is. This is common for bonding. And if you never bonded for anything in government before, you probably don't have a lot of experience in it, but that's a very common thing. And it is everybody's sole purpose or wish as an American citizen to decide just how much data they want to give out. But the more data you give out, the more data you help, the more you help the community, the more it is done. That doesn't mean you should go run out and tell them everything, but it does. There's a little thing they do called the census, and a lot of this information is in the census. And we work with it here in the financial end of it at the township, where you work with all that information and you fill out monthly and quarterly reports and everything else, and that's how your community is. You have a scorecard if you want, or a grade point as far as where your community is and where you stand. And that, you're spot on. I mean, that's whether or not they want to answer the questions. Myself personally, I chose to take in that answer any of the county's broadband questions, because I feel that you got a lot of different things we're doing with broadband right now, in a lot of different ways, through the federal, through the county, through the local, and I don't feel that they need that information from me. I'm not happy with my internet service, and I live a little farther in boonies than you do, Jason. and I understand that. My wife and I look at that on a regular basis. But it's this is a normal thing, Ray. You need to take and understand, you're the supervisor of the township. You may not want to give them your information, but it's important for your township to get a good report. And it's not be negative about it, but to be positive that our community is comprised of what our SEV is, what our taxable value is, how many houses we have, how many people we have, how many single families we have. It's all part of it. It really is. I deal with it on a quarterly basis in here. I file reports recorded about this stuff, so I understand that part of it. But I disagree. I think Jason's spot on. I hope that people do fill out this stuff in township so we get an idea how much actual township residents are interested in the broadband.
Thank you.
Oh, I think that makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just don't ask me personal questions.
I'd like to personally thank Jason for all of his work and endeavors these years. And the committee work that has been done so far has been really, really extraordinarily well done. So thank you.
I can't accept it, because the real work has been done by the members of the committees and the township staff.
I'm commending the group, Jason. You've put a really good group together to represent us, and I appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
All right, is there any more questions? Statements? Okay, we're good. So now we're on 12C. Judy's going to give us committee report.
I didn't realize I was a committee report as an agenda item. I can speak about our work, what we presented tonight, the Senior Services Advisory Board's strategic plan is a lot of the work that we've been doing. The center is open. We're following very strict COVID procedures to make sure everyone is safe. We're not having any activities right now. We are planning for activities. We're still doing INR, medical equipment lending, the diaper bank, and the services that we have traditionally provided at the senior center. Thank you.
You're not going to talk on the strategic plan? Or is
I
it-
spoke to that in
Okay.
public comment and asked if anyone had any questions. Would you like to ask some questions, Marie?
Just that I know this is a very aggressive plan, which I happen to think is pretty cool. But you and I have talked about that. Is there any other questions? Everybody's had a chance to look at your strategic plan, which
I have
is,
a comment.
please.
I just want to commend the Senior Services Advisory Board Committee. I forget which one it is.
It's a board.
Up for discussion.
It's a board.
It is, as someone who likes to see strategic plans, I think you've done a great job, and it provides a solid direction for accomplishing the future goals of the senior center. So thank you for.
We feel it's important for
senior centers committees.
for the township as a whole to move forward in this area, to have a plan to follow. So we appreciate it. Thank you.
I do have one question. Do you support, as Mr. Larkin talked about, 7 to 9?
Yes, I spoke to that in my public comment.
Well,
Yes.
I know you went over it very quickly, but I just wasn't sure.
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
no, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, items 13, looks like A, introduction of, items for introduction and discussion, and in small a, process for appointments to committees. Superintendent Overall.
Thank you. You'll have in here, based on an email I circulated and then an analysis that was provided by Supervisor Howe, some differing opinions on appointments to the different groups that we have. The one that we were discussing last time, I believe, was the Zoning Board of Appeals, and as the supervisor stated at that time, she does not solely make recommendations to the board, but any board member can make a recommendation for appointment to that board. So that includes the supervisor, the treasurer, the clerk, or any trustee. So I am asking at this time, because all of the current applications are being given to her, that those be given either to the clerk or the deputy superintendent, so that they can be shared with the board electronically. And then I think additional discussion is needed based on legal counsel's opinion that the advisory boards have what I would call a silence on the issue as to who should appoint or recommend or appoint, which would be the Senior Services, Parks and Recreation, Farmers Market, Public Advisory Board, Police and Fire, Public Guard, and the Road Committee. So if you wanted us to look, we could look back, and it would require more research to locate either minutes or resolutions, or the board could adopt a new resolution, unless you have found something, Supervisor Howell.
No, I'm just bringing this because those are the legal opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah, our attorney has given to us.
Yeah.
I keep track of those.
Yep, and it says that the Charter Township and the Township Code are silent on those, so. So I guess that however the board wants to proceed, you have the information and we can determine whether that continues by the supervisor or in another manner which you may prefer. But at this time, she was correct. The Election Commission, the Board of Review, and the Zoning Board of Appeals are really the responsibility of the Board of Trustees. So those applications no longer need to go to just the supervisor, but can be distributed to the entire board.
Right, now that's under items of introduction and discussion. So you're asking, and I have a statement to make with that. So if nobody else has any, do you have a question, Ryan?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, I'm going to read this because poor Brenda has to put down, it's there, so I made copies for her. It says, the focus of my analysis, which you all probably have with the packet, was to connect the information provided by the superintendent on January 18th of 2022. The superintendent stated that the supervisor, me, was responsible for making all appointments to the township boards and committees and commissions. It was obvious to me and possibly others that this statement was inconsistent with our attorney's opinion in December of 2020, which was given to all of the Board of Trustees and staff. Thus, I felt incumbent on me to clarify the issue on which, why did I make my analysis? That it was placed January 7th of 2022 in the board packet. I didn't quite get that because it's supposed to be confidential. It should be noted that the confidential attorney opinion was distributed to all Board of Trustees on December 15th of 2020, which again, I keep copies. This issue needed to be clarified. To me, there is no additional action to be taken by the board. And there you go. So you got it. You are more than welcome.
I have a question.
Yes.
How many vacancies do we have across our committees and boards and advisories?
I don't have an exact number at this time, but I would be happy to send out that number to all of you following this meeting.
Are we full right now?
No, we are not.
Okay, so it's safe to say that there's room to recruit folks. And I don't remember the conversation that spurred your analysis, Marie. I think what I remember was that there was a comment about the supervisor making appointments. And I don't know if it was a policy statement as opposed to more of a kind of a casual kind of statement. Regardless, the full board makes the actual appointments. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't care who brings high-quality potential committee members to the board for deliberation. We should all be doing that. Now, whether, it has to go through you or through deputy superintendent, yes, we want a transparent process. I think we can figure that out. But as much as I appreciate the analysis, I think I don't know where the issue is in terms of what we're going to try to solve with this. I think what we just need to do is all work together to find
That's exactly
people
right.
to serve on
I
our
would
committees.
agree with that. The issue at hand had to do with the fact that it was my responsibility to do for all. Treasury Township law, 1947, states that that's not true. There are certain things that the supervisor is, or the superintendent, I'll say supervisor, is responsible for doing. It actually lays out specifics, and our attorney knew that. The only disagreement that I had when I read his opinion, there wasn't a disagreement with it because he spent a lot of time doing it, was the fact that when he said that there was no opinion that has to do with advisory. I understand that. Historically, and this is the thing that I've always been told that we're supposed to be looking at, is what we've done in the history of how things have run. So I get that. What I didn't get and didn't understand was the fact that there are certain boards, commissions, and the three of those, that I do not access. You do. That's what, and of course the comment was, well, you're on the board, so you're supposed to bring it to us. Well, we're all
They're all,
supposed to.
I guess I misspoke in that all the applications go to you.
No, you always get copies.
I don't. No.
Sure you do. I always ask.
No, I don't. I don't get them.
Can you just tell us what the process is? If I were to come in and apply for a committee, where I fill it out, where does it go from there?
She does. I don't have them. So.
Somebody electronically gets them so that they can be put.
So
down.
if,
So mine are always copied, and then I'm given the copy.
I can speak to that if I may.
Yes.
So if someone brings in a physical printed application and hands it into the front desk, one of the ladies at the front will take a copy of it.
Sure.
They will provide Marie with the original.
Correct.
I get a copy. However, if they are emailed, they can either be emailed directly to Supervisor Howe, which some people have done, or they can be emailed to our info email, which is managed by our front office staff, and then they disperse it from
Who's responsible for managing that process
the process. Like,
that you just described?
There isn't really
There isn't any
right
management.
now. In the past, supervisors have managed keeping all of the applications and then bringing forth the ones that they would like to recommend.
Okay.
I'm not sure what you mean by to manage.
It's okay, she answered it.
This is just a discussion item, right?
Yes, yes, it is. So we
I
can,
think that there could be a tech solution to this that solves it, where whichever way an application is submitted, it goes into a folder or it's emailed to the relevant people, whether it's, if Marie wants to receive those, great. If she prefers to go to a Google Drive, also great. If we as board members want to be CC'd on that, I don't see why there would be an issue. So, I mean, without making a motion, I think I trust our staff to come up with a simple solution that can meet everyone's needs.
well, first, your simple solution would have to do with a level of communication that takes place. And that's always an issue for anything that has to be done. So when it comes to what I'm responsible for doing, then that's the communication that I have to wait and see what it is that's going on. So what you're saying makes all the sense in the world. If in fact you had a normal situation, but you and I both know this is not a normal situation. So I think when it comes to the idea of how you do things, the board is responsible for the three committees to do. I'm responsible through the law, statutory law, of other things. When it comes to advisory, if that wants to be taken, I just don't think, for me, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference, frankly, how it's done, as long as they want to get filled, which ours, actually, we do pretty good. I sent you guys an email on that with Jackson having a horrible time with their committees. They're having a really tough time. And their population is much larger than ours, and we're doing really well. Our citizens are fabulous when it comes to it. And I'm still very convinced of one committee, one member. I know John's on two, and there are others who have, there's one other that has two. But in the long run, that needs to be looked at, I think, seriously, because we do have a lot of people in our community. And it's just a matter of reaching out to them. That's that. No, but
I'll just, I appreciate the time you took in conducting the analysis. I think you made a compelling case that's.
I spent a lot of time.
It's clear. I think you made a compelling case that's, this is not your sole responsibility. At the same time, I feel that you do still care and want to have voice in finding really good people to serve on committees. And I think we all share that perspective. I mean, I know I share that perspective.
Okay. No, and that's appreciated, to say the least. Very, very appreciated.
Did you send me the article in the City of Jackson?
I thought I did.
I didn't receive anything. I just would love to see it.
No, it was a great article. Are you sure I didn't send it to you? Because I sent it to all the board
I have
members.
no idea what you're talking about, so I don't
Okay.
think I saw it.
I've been there, done that. Yeah, I understand.
Thank you.
No, that's fine. Can you, Jason can pull it up. He probably keeps.
Great, thank you.
If not, I'll send it.
Okay, thank you.
It seems like a lot of this could be solved if Karen and Marie could get in a room and talk to each other.
Thank you. That would be
Yeah,
very
that would be
helpful.
great.
That would be very helpful.
I don't know that this is the level of discourse that we should be engaged in.
Well, it is only from the point that you are responsible for committees as well as, however you determine how things are going to be set up. The reason that I spent so much time on trying to analyze what was going on is because I spent a lot of time since December of 2020 doing nothing but responding to what's being said. I have no concept of what goes on. And
I
so
just
have to
encourage you
respond.
that you don't always have to respond.
Yes, I know.
I mean, what Karen was telling us was the procedure for how applications have moved probably for the last 20 years. And I understand you want that to be different, and it seems like a conversation between the two of you could have solved
You
that.
asked in December for an opinion. This board asked our attorney for an opinion.
Right, but what I'm saying is she described the process as it stood until that literal day. And then,
15th of December.
yes, and you wanted, no, until the day she spoke it, a month ago. You wanted that to be different, and so you spent a lot of
I
time.
didn't want it to be different.
Yes, you do. You don't want the applications only coming to you. That's the process as it stands now.
Correct. What's that? I'm sorry, I'm missing something here.
Do you want the applications to come only to you?
To the applications that come to me for the ones I'm responsible for.
Do you want all of the committee applications to come only to
No.
you? That is the current process. So the no
Yes.
means you'd like that changed.
But that current process is.
Regardless, the current process stands.
That's what you don't understand.
I do
That's what
understand.
No.
I'm well aware. You're not listening to how it actually runs.
Excuse me?
You are not listening to what the women who do the process are telling you how it runs.
I get the appointments. We haven't had any. You have overridden what
I haven't overridden anything.
The zoning committee, the board of review.
I'm not Chris Patterson, who gave us a legal opinion.
No, you did this before.
No, right here. Legal opinion from the attorney,
Yes. it
not
is.
me.
No.
I didn't make this law. I didn't pass this law.
But then you did it.
I didn't do anything, Marie.
You did. Okay, you didn't. I nominated and appealed to everybody. So leave it at that. Yes, it would be nice if you get together. That would be very good. Whatever your time is, you just let me know and we'll work it out.
I think it needs to be an ongoing process, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that these process-oriented things can be handled by you, who is the chief of the board in the office, and her, who is the chief of the staff in the office.
You hearing?
I am,
Okay, good.
and I had hoped that that's the relationship we would have, but it's not,
No, it's not.
because you accused me of playing games the first time that we met.
What has that got to do with today?
Because you
Yeah,
set the
can we cut it off? I
tone,
think
because
you're right.
you set the tone for a
You're
relationship.
right.
You set the tone for a relationship that was,
I set the tone.
So.
no, you set the tone by
Okay.
saying I was playing
That's-
May I
games.
step in?
Yes, please do.
I think there's some communication that's work that we all need to do. Marie, I hear you in terms of, we recognize that you had an ambitious platform of.
You knew nothing of my platform.
I'm trying to.
I realize
So
that, but I'm just telling you factually.
And we ran into some bumps early. But I think it's important, and I think we all think it's important, to fix this. And in as much as we can identify ways of putting bygones behind us and moving forward, we should go after it.
Oh, I think that's a wonderful idea.
And so let's.
Don't just. You gonna move?
No, I'm not moving, but you
You got good
might.
breath. You
I don't think you're gonna
better
move
make
me.
it good. You better make it good.
You're gonna move me.
Wait. That's too funny.
So,
Clarification
perhaps-
is very good.
Maybe it makes sense to have, another board member at those meetings to just play a third part. But let's not
Oh,
figure
I-
this
I
out
think-
here.
no,
Let's figure it out.
Thank you, Ann. That's good. All right, we're gonna move on then. Thank you. Wherever we're at. Oh, this might be just as bad. Strategic planning.
So I included in your packet the one strategic plan input that I have received electronically. And I received that from Supervisor Howe. I know that Trustee Almarigi had given me a verbal idea for possibly having I believe you called it a workflow process analysis, something like that, a verbal report, but I've not received any additional strategic plan input. So I don't know if that means you were planning to share it here tonight. I don't know if that means anybody forgot or we just aren't engaged in this process. So it is clearly a discussion to be had here, whether we should continue this process or move on.
Should I make my comments when it starts everything?
Sure.
Okay. Again, I'm reading it from the both her heart. She tries so hard to get stuff done. Since I was not only surprised, but I was really disappointed that there were no other ideas provided by the Board of Trustees. Upon the staff's request that the board send their ideas to the Township Strategic Planning, showing our future for January 18th. And I mean that sincerely. In my opinion, this is a very important issue that there's numerous ideas set forth to do this simple request from our staff following the 3 weeks between our meetings. A good example of our township strategic plan is the newly formed committee addressing sidewalks. That's probably one of the best, which is spearheaded by Trustee Almarigi. Other examples would be the Park Lake Trail, whether or not that's going to be part of our strategic plan. Our broadband, internet, is that part of our strategic plan? And additional funds for raising money, is that part of our strategic plan? Trash pickup in our township. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So because the superintendent didn't hear from the other trustees, I was a little disappointed because I thought for sure they would. I'm a little surprised mine was included, but that's okay.
I would have done that if I had received one from everybody. So.
I hope so, because, that would be the only way that we would know whether or not you're engaged in a strategic plan. I think Jason's would have been really easy to fill out from the standpoint of sidewalks, and that's nothing personal, just that you've been so active with those two issues. That's part of a strategic plan. Is that something that we're going to be doing? Because that will take place in what, 2023, 24, something like that. So my idea for being able to put ideas out there shouldn't be that difficult. I was once asked in a kind of interesting way, what's my plan? Well, I've always had my plan, but that's not either here nor there. That's always something that needs to be planned, which is what the superintendent brought to the attention, so that we can look at a strategic plan. And I'm sorry you didn't engage, or if you are going to engage tonight, fabulous. That's what this is all about.
Since I didn't provide a written set of ideas, I provided a verbal.
Yes.
I'll share them here. I was pretty strong in my language on what I thought would be helpful for this board and this township. I was focusing on how we interact together and whether there's ways that we can work more effectively together. I think it's fair to say that there was an appetite for that type of work for the board. And so my recommendation was that perhaps township staff could look at ways that they can work together. We have a lot of young staff, we have new staff, and perhaps maybe there's professional development that will help them grow professionally if they choose so. And so that was my recommendation to the superintendent. I can generate lots more ideas too, but I
know.
tend to talk a lot.
You just keep, the ideas keep flowing. Is anybody else?
I don't think anybody else has got more to go here. I have not, I'm the one that actually made the motion that we bring it back in 2 weeks, and everybody should think about it for 2 weeks. I as well didn't make a written plan because I don't feel that it's my job to do that. I think as the keeper of the money, the treasurer, what I'm responsible for here, I have to take and make work whatever we decide as a board to do, whether or not I vote for it or don't vote for it. I have to make do and have to figure out how to make things accountable. And here's the thing, what I hope that this board will do with its strategic plan is I hope that they'll take into account the financial stability that they have today, and think about where we're at today with inflation, double-digit inflation. I heard somebody in the audience earlier, he left now, but he talked about how a lot of people are hurting for money. A lot of folks are hurting for cash. There's a lot of things that are down. I mean, my wife was off sick for about 16 days, and I got to do some marketing at Myers, so I got a first-hand idea about doing that kind of thing. And looking at, holy cow, this stuff costs a lot of money, you know. But I think that I hope the board takes and makes good thoughts with what they have to work with here in the next year. I wouldn't rule out myself. I think that we have a responsibility. We have like $478 million for an SED, what our township is worth, and our houses and the buildings and our businesses and everything we have here in the township. And here's the thing, things might get tight. I was here when it got tight before, if you remember right. 2008 and 7 and 8 and 9, things got bad. So I've lived this. And we was in good shape when we went into it, and I wasn't able to ride the storm and make it through the 2008 thing. And then I came back here now, and we're back to where we are again. We're in the exact, I feel like myself, we're in the exact same place we were in 2008, or we're coming to it. And that concerns me. I think that we need to look at what we're doing. I'll do whatever you folks want to do with the money, but I think we need to look at what we're doing. I think we need to look at where we're at. People have got a lot of money invested in their homes. People could lose their jobs. If people spend thousands and thousands of dollars making their house payments and making their homes and whatnot. We have oodles of mortgage companies here in this township that have homes that people pay for. And one thing I think we could do, and I'm not saying we should, not saying we shouldn't, but I think we should consider maybe having doing a township-wide reassessment and having that looked at to see if we can save homeowners money, see if our assessments are high. My opinion is I think everybody's assessment's high, but I get to see them all, and I'm a little bit cheap. So that's part of the problem. I'm a farmer. But I think that we ought to do things like, we ought to consider that if you should consider that, you should consider all this stuff in the way of your infrastructure and what you can do to help save the citizens of this township dollars in the future with the money that you have in the way that you've gotten it. Because some of this money is set aside for the purpose of certain things like roads and utilities and public safety and parks and recreation and all this stuff. All this stuff that you do will help the citizens make their house, make their taxes, and make their stuff more affordable. And if it doesn't, if the assessment thing comes back and it goes the other way, you don't have to take it. But it might be something you might want to consider. It would be something you could work with. And you don't even have to consider that, but just be thoughtful about what you're doing. Because this is a scary time. I've lived it and been through it. I know exactly what we're on a path right now, and there's no, with this COVID thing and with the supply chain thing and everything else, we don't know where we're gonna end up. And that's my concerns that I have with the strategic plan going forward right now. Do I think we ought to have some of these other things that they wanna have? Yeah, but I'm not sure that I want to vote for it, but I gotta do whatever you guys decide you're gonna do, so, for a couple more years here anyhow. Thank you.
I think as a board, we're on the right track. We all share a mutual concern. We are in wonderful financial condition right now. But with the increased costs that we're facing, we have to be very, very careful or do our due diligence. I know it was earlier recommended that we need to check all of our revenue streams this coming year, and that the treasurer and the superintendent are going to lead us in that direction. And I want everybody to know I wholly support that endeavor. As we move forward, we're going to have to look at some bonding. So we have some tremendous financial decisions to make, and we're really going to have to stay focused on that, because this could change and we could be in bad times. So while we have some good times, maybe we can do some things to make it better in the future. We'll just have to see. But that's what my focus is.
Anybody else, Lynn?
I've been through it 2 times.
You?
You have to realize that all your neighbors are the ones that help keep this township going.
Correct.
And, you know, you have to care for each other. And bitterness is a thing that come out of the federal government, and it acts like it's spreading through the townships. That's all I got to say. I'm for my main feeling is for the police and the fire and the roads. I think that everybody deserves a good road to drive on. And everybody deserves the good police department and fire department that we have. Because they have done a great job for the amount of money that we've put into them.
Does anybody else have any thoughts? You're not very quiet, Jason. Go ahead.
Trustee Rosenkrantz comments, I reminded me of a conversation that was had at the Public Art Committee. We do have a tremendous community. We have a lot of people who go way out of their way to volunteer and to help each other out. One of the ideas was, how can we recognize these people in some form of capacity? I think there's an advantage to doing that. One is, we reinforce that mindset, so I think that's a phenomenal thing. It wouldn't even cost us anything other than making a public statement. So.
there anything else, anybody? The only thing I have to say to it is, and Steve and I argue about this quite often, we want to do something for this community, and we want to make sure that they're receiving everything that they should receive. And I just wish that more people would look at our budget as opposed to what it does. And I know he keeps telling me, I don't understand how government works. I only worked in it for a decade, but I don't understand economically how it works. If our budgets were under control, better control, maybe that's the way to put it. If our budgets were better controlled with these bad times that is talked about here, that we may or may not be experienced, or what we're going to do with it, I would feel better myself about the shape that the township is in. We do have a phenomenal community. I've lived in different communities over my 70-plus years. And Bath has probably one of the most unusual communities of people that I've run across, and I think it's awesome that they're here. But I worry about what it is that, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, I'm worried about their budget. I'm worried about where their taxes are going. It plays on me as to how it's laid out. But that's the end of my story. I would certainly like to see better communication, better work, and things that will go better for the community. Okay, are we done? Nope, Jason, we're right ahead.
Just, recommendation, I trust that a newly minted comprehensive plan will be for the board and some of
It's on the planning commission, sorry, I didn't interrupt you. It's on the planning commission agenda for tomorrow.
Okay. So I think we can continue the conversation about this
Sure.
strategic plan in reference to the comprehensive plan. And I see the items that you listed, I think there's places where those fit within that.
No, that's a good idea. All right, it looks like we're going to go to the next one, which will be 13B, items for action. I'm understanding that we're going to have a closed session, and this is under Section 8(d) of the Open Meetings Act, to consider the real property at 16086 Park Lake Road in East Lansing. It says here the action items to go into closed, no action to be taken, and that means no action taken in the closed session on the purchase of the property. And there doesn't seem to be attachments for the public. So you guys are kind of on your own until we come back.
I move we go into a closed session.
I'll second
Thank
that.
you.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Giles?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Wissaucer?
Yes.
Mr. Benzie?
Yes.
I like that.
It's hot air in the other room.
Is that what it was?
I'm pretty sure.
Got a lab, just one lab. Got a lab and then this short here.
There's no windows in there.
Was it like a casino?
No, Jason's got a lot of hot air. The other Corey. The temperature just.
Oh, there is. Yeah, this whole building is different.
Yeah. All right, are we all? Oh, there it is. Okay. All right, we're going to call this back to a meeting. Closed session is closed. We're going to look at 13B. We have to have a motion.
So I'll make a motion. I move that the board authorize county staff to investigate.
Did we make a motion to bring it back to
No.
regular session?
No motion.
Sorry, Jason.
No.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That was my mistake. Is there a motion to come back to regular session?
I would move to come back to regular session of the township board meeting.
Second.
Mr. Funes
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
No.
You're trouble with this. All right, it looks like that motion was somewhat unanimous. So we are back in session. So we will do 13B. Now, Jason.
I would like to make a motion. I move that the township board authorizes the superintendent to, to move on investigating and the purchase of real property at 16086 Park Lake Road in East Lansing, in particular, following the recommendations of the planning commission for the contingencies that they placed on the parcel. Is that clear?
I don't know, can I repeat that? All right, you're looking to make a motion to allow for the purchase? Is that what you said, or did I not? Which is your motion?
Investigation.
To move forward with negotiations on purchasing of the property.
Right. Okay, the investigation to purchase.
And let me clarify a little bit more. And if the contingencies are met,
That's what I was here
to move forward with that purchase.
All right. So what we're looking at then, and what we're voting on is for the planning commission to meet those, or for us to meet those conditions that the planning commission has put on for the purchase. If they're met, then the property would be purchased?
I'm sure it's a
That's what
little
I
more
thought you were-
complicated than,
I know, but
Right,
that's,
yes.
that's what the motion is, okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. No discussion? Go ahead, trustee Fee.
So in that scenario, the decision to purchase would not come back to us again?
That's correct.
I think, well, I don't know. I think that would be up to the discretion of the superintendent to.
No, it's up to your motion.
The motion you made means that once they've met the four, or whatever those conditions, there were four, it should be five, but there was four. If they meet those, then we purchase the property.
So my concern with that, and I'm happy to amend my motion, is that with negotiations in real estate, sometimes that gets tricky and things come up, and I'm wondering if, do we want to see have that brought to us?
Yeah, I think we
Yes.
should have it come back to us.
Okay.
For our consideration.
So let me amend my motion. I move that.
Can I ask a question before you do it?
Please.
I didn't read the planning commission brief that close. Is it refer to legal counsel here?
There's nothing wrong with it.
I think that before you can actually purchase anything in way of property, I think you have to when you're all done with everything, if you have everything in place you have.
But that's only to make sure we do real estate.
Okay, I think that's pretty important.
Okay, no, it is very important.
I move that the board authorizes the superintendent to investigate the purchase of real property at 16086, following through on the contingencies requested by the planning commission and any other actions that she deems appropriate for making a legitimate purchase of property. And upon that investigation, she brings that information to the board for final approval.
I'll amend my second.
No, I'm not gonna try to repeat that, but you're close enough. It's been second, any discussion?
I would like it read one more time. Well, I didn't catch the very end of it.
The motion is to authorize the superintendent to investigate the purchase of real property at 16086 Park Lake Road, following the recommendations of the planning commission for the contingencies that they placed upon the purchase, as well as additional efforts that she deems appropriate, such as engaging the township attorney for a review of any and all documentation. And I'm sure there's other things that would come up per a realtor's recommendation that I don't have the expertise in. So
Bring it back to the board.
Yes.
And bring
it back to the board.
Okay.
For final
Okay.
decision on the purchase.
You amended your second, but you.
I didn't change mine.
No, you,
You didn't change it again.
no.
She did amend it.
Okay,
All
that's
right.
what I,
I did amend the second.
okay.
I apologize for the bulkiness of my wording.
Well, that's a tough. All right, any discussion? No, all right, roll call?
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Ms. Howe?
No. Yes. No reason for it, but that's okay. All right, so it looks as if we were, what, 6-1? Okay, for acceptance, so that passes. We will go to BC of 13, which is the introduction and first reading of ordinance 29.1.
I'll move approval of the introduction and first reading of ordinance 29.1.
I'll second it.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
All right, that takes us to 13, the deeds of agreement, meeting policies.
Thank you. This policy was brought to you at last meeting. In response to the public comment that was read, on the last page of the policy, it does state that there would be the continued live streaming of all Board of Trustees meetings, and that all other boards, committees, and commissions will be recorded and made public on the Township YouTube channel the following business day. So I just wanted to clarify that that will continue to still happen under this meeting policy.
Okay, I have, go ahead. Anybody else, because I have an amendment, and I handed it out. So did you have a chance to read it? If you look at page 1 and 2, specifically page 2, in-person meeting, I'm asking you, let me help you out. 2 sentences down, it says video and audio live stream, which is what you do now. What I'm asking is to insert To also ensure the Board of Trustees meeting and public hearings are available to the public by providing your video and your auto live stream to the participants that establish a means of two-way communication for receiving public comments during the live stream regular meetings of the Board of Trustees. Because when I read this, I don't see two-way communication, so that anybody who's unable to attend
That's
doesn't
correct.
have access to public comments.
So we do not do that now.
No, we don't.
And the reason for that is because in the current setup that we have with the boardroom technology, it is not feasible. It's not impossible, we would just need to update our technology.
Correct.
It would need to be quite a significant update to our technology in order for that to be smooth and so that it can be heard by anybody in this room, but also heard by people that are watching the live stream.
All right, one paragraph down, one sentence down, your B, paren. You're going to allow electronic two-way communication for staff. Says the township will provide the option of electronic participation.
That's required, that's what's
In-
in the, and
Yes.
so
No,
it means like
what
if I
I-
was in Hawaii, you
would-
would Zoom me in,
Exactly.
which most
But
likely
we-
I would probably not Zoom in.
Yes,
So
and
it's a-
in that instance, I can do
No.
that a little bit differently. In the situation that I have multiple people calling in is when it's difficult.
It
Well,
goes
If
back.
I have one person, if I have Karen that's calling in from Hawaii, I can set up one thing in order to do that. If I have to bring in multiple phone numbers or multiple people into a Zoom meeting and have that heard in here, but then also heard on the live stream, that's when it gets difficult. If I have one person to worry about, that's a little different.
Okay. Having said that, for almost 2 years, year and a half plus, we did Zoom.
Yes,
with
but that was
multiple
strictly
people.
Zoom, that wasn't in person and Zoom.
It was a two-way communication.
Yes, but it was not in person and.
DeWitt does it, other townships have done it, and it's a hybrid.
Yes, I understand.
And I know you are, and you're very smart with that. So when in fact you tell me that we can't do it to allow individuals who are unable to attend, the ADA just was amended to allow people to do it with
Yep, I understand.
disabilities, but they have to ask for it. What about someone who has a broken leg? Or someone who's homebound?
She's just saying we don't have the technology for it.
And what I'm saying is we get the technology. It's not right that you cut them out. It's wrong that you do not allow them to participate with public opinion simply because they can't make it here.
That is not what I'm saying. I am saying that with the current technology that we have, we
Yes.
cannot do that. So if you would like to add that into this policy, then we also need to look into updating our current technology.
That's correct. That's correct. And there's,
Mary, are you making a motion?
yes, I am. I'm making a motion to accept this amendment for our policy as opposed to accepting the policy, adding it to the policy.
I'll
Is what
second that.
this amendment is supposed to do. It's supposed to add to our policy.
I will second it.
Thank you, so that you can allow everyone to participate.
So is your motion to accept the policy with this
with
in
this
addition?
amendment.
Okay. Do we know how much money it would cost to do a,
That was my question.
I would need to
Probably.
come up with a proposal and budget and speak with our IT professionals to come up with a dollar amount for that.
Just to update, if you remember, and putting different cameras to allow our cameras, it was like 40,000. So I'm assuming ASSU would be, that that's pretty close to.
We would need additional technology in order to do the audio portion, but with that portion, yes, it would be about
That's
that much.
probably a round figure. Yes, Jason.
There's probably a million ways of solving this issue.
I'm
Yes.
sure there is.
Technology's out there. We could do this. I mean, two-way communication is kind of vague, and it could be as simple as people submit questions via a Facebook portal that you monitor and read during a meeting, or another staff member, while also live streaming. And so it may not be something that's super expensive. I think what should be paired, and maybe we postpone this policy until we look into what some of the technologies are. I share, and I think we all share, and value public input into the decisions that are made in this township.
I
And
hope so.
we should actively seek ways to engage community members in this dialogue. It
What-
benefits
what-
and strengthens all of our decisions and builds confidence in the work that we do.
That's
So, to me, this is a non-negotiable.
To me, it wasn't.
And I think something that we should invest in.
One last note. You used the MTA to be able to say what was said. On page 3 of the MTA, it says, MTA believes that providing electronic meeting access to the public, including participating in public comment, on the record, in public hearing, is one way to provide public access, important transparency. So even MTA agrees that this needs to be done. So anyway, somebody raised their hand and I missed it.
I don't think we should move forward until we know what we're talking about.
Okay, I think that's legitimate. So you want to postpone it to the next meeting? Is that what you're thinking?
You have a motion on the floor.
I know, I do.
I think it's going to take a lot more than 2 weeks to figure out the different options and the costs. And I mean, I'm not super interested in having someone sitting at home typing Facebook nonsense to us, but if someone wanted to Zoom in and give us feedback, I think that's appropriate.
You think the public comment would be nonsense?
You didn't watch the public comment live when we were doing it on Zoom?
Oh, yeah.
A lot was nonsense,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
There's a whole thing.
It was snarky, it was rude, and it was not the public feedback that we're legitimately trying to collect.
Well, but they had comments that could be made verbally. All I'm saying is that, and I think Jason.
I'm not arguing with you, Marie, I was just giving you my opinion.
No, I understand.
So you don't need to counter me, I understand what you're saying.
I wouldn't want to comment. You're right.
I'm concerned about the cost, so before I move forward, I'd like to know how much money I'm spending
So you're going to put a cost on it.
to support Treasury Wishwasher. I'd like to know where it's coming from. What budget we're gonna take it out of.
How about 3.5 that we have, what is it, 5 million we've got now?
I don't make comments like that, I don't know,
Oh.
open mic. You can always want it, but,
You should say, you said it's 5 million. So, yeah. Okay, so my motion then is what? Because it is a motion, it's not going to be,
So you have a motion and a second.
I have a
You can
motion.
withdraw your
Yes.
motion, or we can move forward with it both.
what I would do, as long as you're looking to look at the cost for people to become engaged in what we're doing, then I would pull this motion and hold it off until, what? When are we gonna postpone it to? Usually, when you postpone, it's the next meeting, but if it takes longer, 2 meetings,
Postpone it until she has some figures for us.
well, that can take forever. Well,
No, it won't take forever.
That's-
We can,
what do you think, Taylor? What are you looking at?
I mean, at least the next 2 meetings would be
Okay,
preferable.
so we're saying March?
Or March 21st. I would say March 21st with some of the other projects that I have coming.
Well, that's what I mean, you're really, okay.
Can I make a recommendation? In addition to looking at the costs, I look at if there's policy, I mean, going to Ryan's comments, there's policies about filtering of comments.
Yes, I will look into several different
Your
possible
moderator
two-way
does that.
communication.
That's part of what that,
I think
Okay.
to have clear set
Yes.
of rules
Okay.
and
Yes.
and stipulations,
Yeah.
I think would benefit all of us.
Yep.
Yes, I agree.
well, that means anybody who's calling understands there's a policy. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do then is I will put this amendment on hold. We'll postpone it until March. Wait, I don't know if we can do that. That's a long time, but that's, no, not with Robert's rules. When you postpone.
If you table, it has to be the next one.
Yeah, no, the other way around. I looked, you've taught me, I looked. So, we're gonna say March 21st. Okay, this is February 7th. Okay.
Do we need to have this policy in place without the amendment at this point? Or are we okay without the policy in
We're
place?
still gonna follow the Open Meetings Act, we were just,
Right.
you know,
And the
the previous policy because of the Zoom and inclusion.
So there's no push to make sure we have this in
We're
place?
gonna continue to follow the Zoom.
Okay.
Well, that means there'll be an exclusion.
The Open Meetings Act says that we have the option to include
You
those.
do have the option to,
So we're still
so
following
if
the
you don't
Open
have the
Meetings Act
technician,
regulations.
but if you don't have the technology for allowing the input, that means for the next 3 meetings, they won't have the input, individuals, our residents.
They haven't had that for 100 years. I think we can wait 3 meetings.
But they have had it on Zoom.
Not here, they have not.
Yes, they have.
Marie, they have not.
You
Not
guys
while we
never-
have been in
Thank
person.
you. That's,
I think we're saying while we've been wholly in person.
oh, that's true. And
Wholly in
that's-
person.
That's why this became an issue, was because there was no input that the community has. There's no public comment, except those who are there in person. And if you can't make it in person, you're out of luck. So, that's all that's being said. So if that's what you're looking to do, that means for the next 3, people have to understand, for the next 3 meetings, then, until March 21st, there'll be no input, other than if you have to be there in person.
Well, you brought input from Meg, she emailed, so people can still
She
email
emailed,
or
that's
drop.
correct, they can email,
They can, I mean, I guess that's,
as long as they get permission to release it and say, did you read it? Yes. Okay, so I'm pulling this until March 21st.
Okay.
And it doesn't seem like this is giving us a lot of issues at this point, so the whole thing will be postponed? Okay? Okay. We will then go to, oh, do we need a vote for postponing it? Probably should just make
You
sure.
withdrew your motion.
You withdrew your
I
motion.
withdrew the motion, but we're asking to postpone it.
we will bring it back to you on March 23rd.
Right.
You don't
You
even
have to
we'll
vote
bring it
for
back to you.
Okay. All right. All right, so we'll postpone D. So now E, we're doing expansion for the senior centers. Do I have a second on that one? Do you want to?
Second on what?
Describe what you're bringing to the table here.
Well, what's.
She wants a
right here,
second.
They moved this one
bringing
up to
is
here.
expansion of the
She asked for
senior
a second
services
on something.
advisory board
Yeah,
membership
that's her,
from 7 to 9.
this motion.
motion.
Right.
I will make a motion to expand the Senior Services Advisory Board membership from 7 to 9 members.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr.
I've got comments, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
So I read Karen's memo in here, and I have to say that I strongly agree with her. A lot of what we heard in our friends here who do great work on the Senior Services Advisory Board does seem to be more staff in nature. I think this is one of our only boards who have been able to do staff level activities over the years. And I don't think it's the appropriate way for the work to get done. I think our staff need to be doing the work and not our volunteers. These committees are meant to be governance and advisory in nature, not out representing the township and doing township activities. So I don't think it's necessary to expand to 9 because of that. I think we need to make sure that staff are doing the work that we have hired them to do and are paying them to do.
Okay. I'm not sure I would agree with that statement, but that's okay, you made it, and that's good.
Thank you.
Anybody else think? Thank you. Is there anybody- go ahead.
I think that there's a lot of work to get done. I think that during the pandemic, we've all struggled. I think we've talked about not having the staff capacity to accomplish everything that we wanted to accomplish. I think if we've got individuals in our community who are willing to step up and support the work. I think that if we're smart about how, what we ask our volunteers to do, so that they're not making business negotiations or other, our concerns are for representation of the township. I think it's a win-win scenario. I mean, people want to volunteer, let's let them. Two additional members to the Senior Services Advisory, especially when it's been successful in the past. I don't know what the argument is.
I just made it, I thought.
All right, is anybody else have a comment?
Are you picking on me?
I'm not.
Oh, okay. I thought you were picking on me.
You know what I'm picking on.
I've been through it. I know.
So what?
I've dealt with, no,
All right.
not you. I've dealt with the 9-member committee. I think at one time you might have had 12 or 14 people on the committee. I don't know.
All right, okay, no more discussion, we'll take a vote.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
No.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
No.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Carries 4-5. 5.
5, so motion, it passes. So congratulations. Now we'll go out and find the other 2. Or you. All right, superintendent's report.
Thank you. The 2 updates that I have for you this evening, unless you have questions, are related to hiring. The police department has successfully secured 2 additional police officers through their process. They do not have start dates for you, and I will not announce the names, but we are in the process of I believe we've negotiated with them, and they've accepted, and we're moving through some additional steps with them, so their names will be announced very soon. And then I am in the process of negotiating at this time for a recreation coordinator. We were able to meet with several members of the Farmers Market Board and the Parks and Recreation Board, as it's currently still named, and eliminating, taking 45 down to, I'm going to say 45, approximately down to 20, and then taking 20 down to, each person had their top 5, and then we were able to secure 5 candidates and then conduct interviews. So I am currently negotiating with the unanimous pick of the group to hire that person, and hopefully I will be able to announce that as well when that becomes final. So there are some good things pending at this time.
It's great news.
Yes. Thank you. Public statement 2. Anybody wants to make a public comment?
Dennis Lardy, Coleman Road. I'm the Senior Advisory Board. I just want to thank you for your decision. I want to let you know that we won't let you down, and we're going to be doing some good things. And with 9 people, I think we'll be able to do good things for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else has public comment? All right. Looks like board member comments. Let's start down with you.
You can.
I can't remember. You 2 were gone. Go right ahead.
Thank you everyone for attending tonight's meeting, and apologies for how long the meeting was.
Thanks, everybody.
Should I wait for you or what?
Well, I was waiting for you to call on me.
Oh, trustee Wiswasser, do you have board comments?
I'm not a trustee, I'm a third. That's the first thing.
That's the first thing.
You get confused
I do
later.
get confused. I do get
I have no comments.
I did, but
I just want to congratulate our assessor, Beth Bodke. She was appointed to the Clinton County Tax Allocation Board for 1-year term.
Oh,
I'm waiting for my
Trustee
turn.
Rosecrans.
I have nothing.
Trustee Hewin Bliss.
I just wanted to commend the staff. There were comments that we have budget challenges and that things aren't good and our budget isn't good. I just looked at the audit one more time from last year where Karen, under her leadership, put almost $500,000 into the fund balance. So if that's not good, I don't know what good is. So thanks to the staff for your leadership on the budget.
All right, let me make it quick. This is congratulations to our boys basketball team. I wanted to make sure I have it correct. I'd like to acknowledge and congratulate the boys high school basketball team regarding the recent success. The boys basketball team has been handicapped during the first season due to illnesses, and of course COVID and other illnesses, and injuries, but they're now back at full strength to evidenced by their recent win over Langsburg. The Fighting Bees are our 4th team winning streak with a record of 8 wins, 3 losses. As mentioned in the Lansing State Journal's power ranking, showing the area statistic leaders, this is who we have. Ethan Swenson, who is an average of 20 points and 11 rebounds per game. Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, it is pretty good. Josh Kares, K-A-R-E-S, who's averaging 12 points per game with 19 of the 3-pointers. Amazing. And Devondre Challenger, that's your middle name, Challenger, who is leading the team with a 3.2 assists per game. To me, those were pretty amazing statistics for our boys basketball. So best of luck for the remainder of the season. Other than that, thank you all for coming and for staying as late as you did.
I move we adjourn.
We've got 1 minute. So shoot. Oh.
We got a minute. Does anybody make comments? I'd like to point out, Marie, that we have 4 school districts in Bath Township.
Yes, we do.
We have East Lansing, we have Langsburg, we have Hazlet, we have Bath. And I have 3 grandchildren that play basketball for Langsburg. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler-Challenger, yes. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser? Mr. Benzie?
No.
I thought you were, yeah, you made this consent, I thought.
So would I.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Well, then
Yes,
we,
I'll vote yes.
Go ahead.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Hewin Bliss?
Yes.
can you say no? Oh, it was supposed to be a consent, everybody.
Unanimous consent. That's what she.
But you can't, you still, you have to say yeah, A and nay. But if a person says nay, then it messes her all up.
Voice vote is what you're.
Yes, okay,
Yes.
yes.
You did good.
Okay.
Yes, she's done just fine.